I live in a quiet, upper-middle-class suburb in Virginia. It's the kind of neighborhood with cul-de-sacs, dog walkers, and street lamps that hum softly at night. My wife and I moved here 2 years ago, when we had our first kid. It felt safe, normal. There's something comforting about predictability. Seeing the same neighbors mowing their lawns, getting the same smiles and nods at the mailbox, hearing the same dogs bark at delivery trucks every afternoon. We loved the routine. It felt like we had finally found stability. That's why what happened last fall messed me up more than anything else ever has. Because it didn't feel like some scary movie or ghost story. It felt real. Too real. It started with the house next door. It had been empty for months. The previous owners, a middle-aged couple with no kids, moved out suddenly. There was no for sale sign, no open house, no moving truck. One weekend they were hosting a barbecue, and the next, they were gone. Just gone. People in the neighborhood talked, of course. You could hear the whispers during HOA meetings and on the sidewalk during evening strolls. A divorce, maybe, money trouble, legal issues. But no one knew for sure, and the house just sat there, dark and forgotten. If this already feels like something out of a suspense film, hit that like button. It lets me know I'm not alone in thinking these things are creepier when they could happen to any of us. The property slowly started to rot. Grass grew tall, brown weeds choking the flower beds. Flyers and coupons collected like snowdrifts on the porch. Every now and then, someone from the HOA would come by to mow the lawn or collect the junk mail, but otherwise, it stayed untouched. Then, one night, around 1 a.m., I woke up to the sound of a truck idling. I rolled out of bed, careful not to wake my wife, and peeked through the blinds. A moving van had pulled up in front of the house next door. It was an old, white, boxy thing. No headlights, no markings, no company name. Just a loud, low-engine growl. 2 men were unloading furniture. A couch, a table, a few boxes. They moved fast, almost too fast, and unnervingly quiet. No talking, no light from inside the house. Just a shuffle of feet and occasional thud of something being dropped inside. It was weird, sure, but I figured maybe the new owners were night owls trying to get a head start. Not everyone moves on a 9 to 5 schedule. Still, something about it felt wrong. But the next morning, no one came outside. No cars in the driveway. No porch lights. Curtains were drawn tight over every window, like they were hiding something inside. No movement. Nothing. That night, just after midnight, I looked out again. This time, the living room light was on behind the curtain. But again, no one came or went. And then I saw it. A figure standing behind the curtain. Perfectly still. Just a silhouette. No face. No features. Just the faint outline of a person watching my house. Not moving. Not shifting. Just standing there. I blinked. Looked again. Still there. I told my wife the next morning. She gave me that look. The one that said, I needed sleep more than answers. It's probably just a lamp or some reflection, she said. Don't creep yourself out. But it kept happening. Every night, midnight, that same figure behind the same curtain. Always still, always staring. Never a flicker of light anywhere else in the house. Then about a week later, it got worse. I was taking out the trash late, around 11:30. The neighborhood was dead quiet. No wind, no crickets. Just the electric hum of the street lamps and the soft shuffle of my slippers on the driveway. That's when I felt it. That cold, invisible weight on the back of my neck. The unmistakable sense that someone was watching me. I turned. The front door of the house next door was open, just barely, a few inches. Just enough to see the edge of a dark shape standing inside. No porch light, no welcome mat, no movement. Just the shadow of someone watching me. I stood there, heart pounding. My trash bag dangled from my hand. Forgotten. I couldn't make out a face, just darkness and that quiet, eerie pressure being observed. I backed away, slowly, walked into my house, locked the door, didn't say a word. If you're still with me, consider subscribing. These stories aren't just entertainment. They're reminders to always trust your gut. The next night, I was up late in the living room. The baby monitor was on, soft static hissing in the background. Our daughter had finally gone to sleep after a long night of fussing. My wife had gone to bed early, exhausted. Around midnight, I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. But it wasn't the front door. It was a sliding glass door in the back. I froze, waited, listened. Nothing. Slowly, I moved through the kitchen and peeked through the curtain. Nobody there. I waited a full minute, heart hammering, hand just inches from the door handle. Then, knock, knock, knock. Louder, more urgent. I flicked on the patio light. Still no one. But in the condensation on the glass, right near the center of the door, was something that hadn't been there before. Not a handprint, a face. Someone had pressed their face against the glass. You could see the faint outline, forehead, nose, lips, like they had leaned in and just stayed there. I stood there for a few seconds, skin crawling. Then I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside to the garage. The backyard was still, empty, silent. But when I turned toward the neighbor's house, I saw something I hadn't seen in days. The living room light was off, and the curtain drawn open. That's when I noticed the furniture, the couch, the boxes. Everything I'd seen moved in just a week ago was gone, like it had never been there. I called the police the next morning, told them everything. They sent a patrol officer out to check. He knocked, rang the bell, walked the perimeter, even peeked through the back window. Eventually, he came back and told me the place was empty. Vacant, he said. No utilities running. No furniture. No signs of occupancy. Hasn't been anyone living there for months. I asked about the truck, the movers. He shook his head. We checked with property records. No one's bought or rented this place in over 8 months. It's still listed as abandoned. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after. About a week later, I got up to get a glass of water. It was close to midnight. Out of habit or paranoia, I looked out the front window. The door to the house next door was wide open. Again, this time, the police brought backup and entered the house. They didn't find anyone, but they did find something in the upstairs bedroom, written in black marker on the bare drywall, in jagged, erratic handwriting. I see you watching. That was 6 months ago. No one's moved in since. The house is still empty. The curtains are gone now. The window's bare. The front door is boarded up. But sometimes, especially on quiet nights, I'll wake up around midnight, glance out the window, and swear I see someone standing there. Not inside, in the yard, just standing and watching. Thanks for watching. If you want more true horror stories like this, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Trust me, sometimes real life is scarier than anything you'll see in a movie. This happened about 4 years ago when my wife and I were house hunting in a quiet suburb just outside of Columbus, Ohio. We'd been looking for months, trying to find something modest. 2 bedrooms, decent yard, a place we could grow into. Our budget wasn't huge, so we were realistic. Most weekends, we toured listings that had been sitting on the market for a while. Homes with outdated interiors, strange layouts, or obvious DIY renovation jobs. We didn't mind putting in the work. We just wanted somewhere to start. One Saturday in October, our realtor sent us a link to a new property that had just gone live that morning. No interior photos, just one front-facing shot. It looked dated but livable. A single-story home with an attached garage, sloped roof, and faded blue siding. The kind of place you could imagine had a rotary phone and shag carpeting inside. Still, something about it piqued our interest. We were already in the area, so we figured we'd swing by the open house and check it out. That was our first mistake. Quick break. If you've ever gone house hunting and gotten weird vibes from a place, hit the like button. You're definitely not alone. We pulled up around noon. The house looked worse than the photo. The shutters were hanging crooked. One was missing entirely. The lawn was yellowed and patchy, and the flower beds were overrun with weeds. The paint had peeled around the windows, and the mailbox was leaning, like it had given up trying to stand straight. But the open house sign was planted in the yard, and the front door was propped open with a cinder block. There were no cars in the driveway, no shoes by the entrance, and no realtor waiting to greet us. I remember making a joke to my wife like, maybe we're the first ones here. She didn't laugh. She already looked uneasy. We stepped inside, calling out a polite hello, but no one answered. No ambient music. No smell of fresh-baked cookies. No little brochures on the counter. Just stillness. The kind of stillness that makes your ears ring. It felt like the air inside hadn't been disturbed in months. The living room was dim, despite the windows. The curtains were open, but the sunlight didn't seem to penetrate far. Everything felt dull and gray, like the house itself was draining the color from the room. The furniture looked off. A sagging floral couch, a coffee table with mismatched legs, an armchair that faced a wall instead of the TV. It felt staged, but not by a professional. Like someone had tried to make it look like people lived there, but didn't know how people actually lived. We started walking through the place, slowly. The layout was bizarre. Narrow hallways that turned sharply, rooms that didn't quite match the shape of the house from outside. One door led to a two-step drop into a tiny room that looked like it had been a pantry, and then a bathroom, and then a closet, all at once. My wife whispered that it felt like the house had been added onto in chunks by someone who didn't know what they were doing. It made you feel like you could get lost in it, even though it wasn't very big. And then we reached the kitchen, and we saw him. A man, maybe mid-40s, was standing in the far corner of the kitchen, his face to the wall. He didn't acknowledge us, didn't move, just stood there, perfectly still, almost unnaturally so. He was wearing a short-sleeve button-up tucked into slacks. No belt, no shoes. His hair was neatly combed, but his posture was vacant. Slack arms, chin slightly tucked, like someone turned him on and forgot to finish programming him. At first, I thought maybe he was the owner or contractor doing some work. I said, "Oh, hey, didn't mean to startle you. We're just looking around." Nothing. He didn't flinch, didn't even twitch. We stood there awkwardly, waiting for him to respond. Still nothing. My wife gently tugged my arm and whispered, "Let's go." I nodded. We started backing out slowly, but just before we stepped through the doorway, I swear I heard it. A breath. Long, dragging, shaky, like someone trying to remember how. If you've ever had a situation go from weird to get out now, drop a comment below. Trust your instincts. That's what kept us safe. We didn't run, but we walked quickly through the hallway, past that sad living room, toward the open front door and the sunlight beyond. But right before we reached the door, we heard footsteps behind us. Slow, barefoot. I turned around. He was there, standing at the far end of the hallway, arms hanging limp at his sides, head tilted slightly, staring right at us. His face was expressionless, but something about his eyes, they weren't right. It was like he was looking through us, or like there was no one behind him at all. We stepped out of the house, trying not to look like we were panicking. I closed the car door and locked it before I even started the engine. As we pulled away, my wife said softly, "Did you notice the walls?" I asked her what she meant. She told me that as we walked through the house, she kept seeing scratch marks on the door frames. Deep ones, like someone had clawed at them over and over. I hadn't noticed. I was too focused on the man. We told our realtor immediately. She was confused. She hadn't scheduled any tours at that property. She called the listing agent for details. That's when everything got worse. The listing, according to the agent, wasn't supposed to be live. It had been published by accident that morning due to a system glitch. The open house? Never scheduled. In fact, the house wasn't ready to be shown yet. They were still waiting on a cleanup crew to go in the following week. More importantly, the agent said the house was vacant. No one had a key. No utilities were on. No one was supposed to be there. She was horrified when we told her about the man in the kitchen, the scratch marks, the breathing. Police were sent to do a welfare check. They found the front door shut and locked. No forced entry. No one inside. But they confirmed the scratch marks were real. And they found dark, rust-colored stains on the basement floor, old but unmistakable. The whole place reeked of mold and dust. There was no man, no record of anyone accessing the property. We never got a follow-up, just silence, like no one really wanted to dig into what we saw. Or worse, like no one wanted us to keep talking about it. If you're still watching, thank you. These stories aren't just to scare you, they're a reminder. The suburbs might feel safe, but the creepiest things don't always happen in the woods or the middle of nowhere. Sometimes they're right next door. About 3 months later, we drove by the house again. Fresh paint, new shutters, new curtains in the windows, a child's bike lying on the front lawn. It looked like a normal family had moved in. Maybe they never saw anything strange, or maybe they haven't yet. But sometimes when I try to sleep, I think about that man. I think about how he didn't move, didn't speak, just breathed. And I wonder, what happens the next time someone walks into that kitchen and forgets to leave? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. One more story's coming, and it might be the most disturbing of the 3. This happened in late 2021 in a small suburb just outside of Tacoma, Washington. I was living alone at the time. My wife and I had recently divorced, and in the split, I ended up keeping the house, a small 2-bedroom ranch at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. It wasn't much, but it had been ours, and after the year I just had, familiarity felt like the only thing holding me together. That winter was colder than usual. The kind of cold that settled into your bones and didn't let go, no matter how high the thermostat was set. Most nights, I'd bundle up in flannel and a hoodie and still feel a chill in the air. My routine became clockwork. Work from home during the day, throw together a simple dinner, watch a little TV, and try be in bed by 10. Boring, sure, but predictable. And after everything I needed predictable, then everything shifted. The first night I saw her, it was around 9:30 p.m. I had just finished rinsing off dishes in the sink when I glanced out the kitchen window and froze. A woman was standing at the edge of my driveway, just beyond the reach of the porch light. She wasn't walking by. She wasn't looking around. She was facing the house directly, completely still, like she was waiting for something or someone. Quick reminder. If you've ever looked out your window and seen something you wish you hadn't, hit the like button. You're definitely not alone. She was wearing a long coat, maybe gray or tan. I couldn't tell. Her hair was dark and shoulder length. But what really stuck with me, what made my skin crawl, was her posture. She didn't look confused or lost. She didn't pace or fidget. She just stood there, arms at her sides, head level, eyes locked on the house. I watched for a full minute, expecting her to eventually move, to walk up to the door, maybe turn and leave. But she didn't move at all. Eventually, I turned off the faucet, dried my hands, and stepped out onto the porch. I cleared my throat and called out, "Can I help you?" No response. She didn't even blink. I tried again, louder. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Still nothing. Not a flinch. Not a twitch. I felt that wrong kind of unease, the kind that doesn't come from what you see, but what you don't understand. The way my brain was trying to make sense of something that didn't follow the rules. I stood there a moment longer before stepping back inside. I locked the door and turned off the porch light. When I peeked through the blinds again, she was gone. No footsteps, no sound of a car starting, just vanished. I stayed up a little later than usual that night, eyes flicking back toward the front windows every 10 minutes, telling myself it was probably nothing. Maybe a confused neighbor, someone with dementia, someone passing through. That worked until the next night. If you had a recurring situation that didn't make sense, drop a comment below. Because sometimes once is weird, but twice means something's not right. The next evening, I was sitting on the couch halfway through a movie when I heard a soft knock at the front door. 3 slow taps. Not loud, not hurried, just polite, intentional. I got up and looked through the peephole. It was her. Same coat, same expression, same stillness. This time, she was right on the welcome mat, inches from the door, staring directly at it. as if she knew I was standing on the other side. And for a second, I swear she leaned forward, just slightly, like she was trying to see through the wood. I didn't open the door. I didn't speak. I backed away slowly and turned off all the lights. Another few minutes passed. Then, again, 3 soft knocks. When I finally looked through the blinds 10 minutes later, she was gone. Again, this same pattern repeated for the next 3 nights. Always around the same time. Always 3 knocks. Always the same expressionless stare. Never a word. And always gone before I worked up the courage to open the door or turn on the porch light. I started asking around the neighborhood. I showed a photo I captured from the doorbell cam, a blurry silhouette at best. No one recognized her. No one had seen her on their cameras either. My neighbor across the street had floodlights and motion sensors. Nothing triggered. It was like she only existed for me. Then came night 5, and it was different. That night, there was no knock at the door, no shadow in the driveway, no sign of her at all. Instead, at around midnight, my phone buzzed. A motion alert from the backyard camera. Now, you have to understand, my backyard is fenced in. There's one gate, and I always keep it locked. The backyard is small, quiet, and surrounded on 3 sides by fences and tall shrubs. I opened the camera feed, and there she was. She wasn't facing the house this time. She was slowly walking along the inside of the back fence, dragging one hand along the wood, as if she were feeling for something. Her head tilted slightly every few steps, like she was listening for movement inside the house. She stopped at the window that looks directly into my bedroom, and she just stood there. I stared at the live feed, frozen, my mouth dry, my heart slamming in my chest. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to breathe. She stood motionless for over 2 minutes. Then the camera glitched. Just a flicker. A single frame skipped. And when the feed came back, she was gone. No trace. No movement. No sound. If you're watching this thinking, what would I have done? Make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I've got more real stories like this, and they only get darker. I called the police the next morning. They took it seriously at first. An officer came by, reviewed the footage, did a walk around. They said it was unusual, but without another incident, there wasn't much they could do. So I upgraded everything. New locks, new security lights, a reinforced latch on the backyard gate. I even installed cameras in the crawl space under the house. And after that night, she never came back. Or at least, I didn't see her again. But the story didn't quite end there. About a month later, I was cleaning out the crawl space. Just routine stuff. Checking for dampness. Inspecting the insulation. That's when I saw something tucked behind the far corner panel. It was a scarf. A gray wool scarf, dusty and worn, but folded neatly, like someone had placed it there carefully. I picked it up, and immediately I caught a scent. Faint but unmistakable. Perfume. Floral, but decayed. Like lilies in stagnant water. I asked my ex-wife if it was hers. It wasn't. I called the previous owners. They'd never seen it before. Something about it felt wrong. So I burned it. I set it in a metal bucket in the backyard, lit a match, and watched until nothing was left but ash. I haven't seen her since. But every winter, especially on the coldest nights, I still wake up around 3 a.m. No reason. Just awake, alert, and without fail, I find myself checking the backyard window, just to make sure she isn't standing there again, waiting. That was the final story in 3 terrifying true suburban horror stories. If you made it this far, thank you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Because the suburbs might seem safe, but they're just quiet enough for the wrong things to slip through the cracks.